Done. Giving you host access.
Mm-hmm. That's all? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
you're host
I
now.
will make Anna host, make a host, change host. Now you can give us the co-host access. Narajan, right now don't allow anyone to enter in. Just let's wait a couple of minutes and then we'll let everyone in. Ես էլ չեմ խոսի, չէ՞, դուք խոսես արդեն։ Ի սկզբանե ոնց որ ես պրոստը ստվան։ Ես պետքա բանի արաբական եւ սամիթի սլայդը զուգահեռ անեմ, այսօր այնտեղ խոսնակեմ ու հələ սլայդը չեմ սարքել։ Զուգահեռ այդ կանեմ։ Եթե մեր խոսնակները ստեղ են, կարաս միացնես խոսնակը կա։
Ահա։ Արմենիան ընդունում։
Ու record կանես։ Արմինե ջան, բարև ձեզ, լսում եք մեզ։
Բարև ձեզ։ Դուք ինձ լսում եք։
Լսում ենք, բայց չենք տեսնում ձեզ։
Իսկ հիմա
Դուք բացում եք, բայց ձեր կամերան սևանում է, ինձ թվում է, որ
կարողա իրապես դա։ Իսկ հիմա
չէ, հիմա այդ չենք տեսնում։ Ձեր ստեղնաշարի վրա F-երի մեջ մի հատ պետքա լինի կամերայով F նշան։ Միգուցե հետ եք սեղմել, որ չի միանում։
F3-ը։
F3-ը միգուցե իմ մոտ ուղղակի ուրիշ է։ Մի հատ փորձեք F3 անել, որտեղ մենք չենք տեսնում ձեզ։ Մենք ձեզ չենք էլ լսում, եթե դուք հիմա խոսում եք։ Արմինե ջան, միգուցե հեռախոսով մուտք գործեք։ Կամ ուղղակի մենք նաև ձեզ չենք լսում, որ Միգուցե խնդիրին մոտցե, թե դուք էլ չեք լսում։
Ես էլ չեմ լսում ոչ մի բան։
Վարկյան չափ փորձ են գրել։ Արմինեն մեզ չի լսում։ Ան դու հեռախոսահամար ունես։
Չէ։ Հա, բայց եւիթ է սա աշխատանքային է։
Որտեվ չեմ հասկանում, ահա դուրս եկավ եւ նորից փորձի ներս մտնել։ Արմինե Տիգրանյան եկավ։ Ահա, ձեզ տեսնում ենք արդեն, բայց չենք լսում, մի հատ եկեք ձայնը ստուգենք, որ
Ստացվեց։
այո, հիմա լսում ենք։
Ես ճիշտ ասած ծրագիրը ջնջեցի, նորը ներբեռնեցի, բայց մեկ այլ բանով եմ ես հիմա միացած, վախենում եմ այդտեղ իմ ուրիշ ակաունտով եմ նորից հիմա ձեզ հայտ տվել, վախենում եմ դա փակեմ։
Որ մեկով ոնց որ թե
Էլի
չի։
Արմինե Տիգրանյան անունով։
Ընդունենք, այդ մեկն էլ ընդունենք։
Չէ, այդ մեկը մի ընդունեք, որ
Okay.
կրկնակի չլինի։ Ես մի հատ հասկանամ ինչպես եմ կիսում նաև իմ պրեզենտացիան։
Ներքևը share-ի կոճակ կա,
Հա, հենց հիմա բացեմ։
Also, just we are organizing the technical issues, so that's why we are speaking Armenian. We have a colleague with us who is speaking only who doesn't speak Armenian, that's why we switched.
Ստացվեց։
Ստացվեց։ Մենակ մեծացրեք, որ ոնց որ
Ընթացքում այո։ Okay։
Okay.
Հիմա բայց երևի պետք չի, չէ՞, միջև մուտքը։
Հիմա պետք չի, Աննան բացումը կանի, մենք արդեն ներս թողնենք, արդեն մոտ 30 հոգի ունենք, հետո ընթացքում կավելանան, էլի թիվը մասնակիցների միշտ ուշանում են ու հիմա ես ներս թողնեմ ու ան կարող ենք արդեն սկսել, շնորհակալություն եւս մեկ անգամ։
Ես նոր եմ ճիշտ ասած։
Ահա։ Եկեք ես անջատեմ share screen-ը, հիմա էս stop։ Հենց ձեր խոսքի ժամանակ արդեն եկեք արդեն ներս թողնենք։
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Maybe we can start from the chat to see where you're joining us from because we have so many participants from different countries. You can write in the chat where you're joining us from. Oh, we have Iman from Sudan, Christine from Spain, from Yemen, from Armenia, Uzbekistan, Liberia, Nigeria, Montenegro, Pakistan, We have Magaria from Ghana, Zambia, very diverse participants. From Haiti, Italy, Kenya. You're all welcome. Welcome to the final day of our International Conference on Cultural Heritage Preservation. It's a pleasure to have you all with us for our concluding sessions. So last week we had a privilege of hearing from outstanding experts, researchers that shared their knowledge on many dimensions of cultural heritage preservation. And today, together we explored international legal frameworks, heritage in times of conflicts, peace building, the role of international institutions, minority heritage. So these dimensions have reminded us that cultural heritage is not just only legacy of the past, but also it's a shared responsibility for our future. And we will begin today's program by examining current challenges surrounding the preservation of Armenian heritage and the importance of international legal mechanisms in safeguarding cultural identity and historical legacy. So we will then explore how digital technologies transforming heritage preservation and conclude with a discussion on participatory education, the role of communities in becoming active cultural co-creators. So I would like to thank you, all of you, for joining us today, dear speakers, partners, volunteers, participants, for making this conference such a meaningful international platform for dialogue and collaboration. And I would like to share some practical notes. The conference is being streamed live on the official CACTIL program YouTube channel, so you can check it out later. Throughout the conference, we invite you to use the chat to ask questions for the speakers, and you will also find attendance form in the chat. Please make sure that you completed it during today's sessions, as it will be used for your for confirming your participation. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker. We are honored to welcome Dr. Armina Tigranyan, a distinguished cultural heritage expert, researcher, and lecturer at the Department of Cultural Studies at Yerevan State University. Tigranyan's work focuses on the protection of cultural heritage during and after armed conflicts, cultural law, international mechanisms for safeguarding both tangible and intangible heritage, community-based preservation, and relationship between identity and cultural heritage. So in today's presentation, Dr. Tigranyan will discuss the urgent challenges facing Armenian cultural heritage and examine the importance of its protection for international law, highlighting why safeguarding cultural heritage is not just a national responsibility, but it's also a matter of global concern. Before we begin, I would like to inform that given the sensitive topic, complex nature of this topic, the speaker would like to approach each question with great care and in detail. So she prefers to respond the questions in writing to provide more careful and detailed answers. So if necessary, to attach relevant articles or documents. So please prepare your questions, and we will share the email of the speaker in the chat, and you can directly ask her questions after the presentation. So she will be pleased to answer you by email. So please join us to welcome Dr. Armina Tigranyan. The floor is yours. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to welcome you all to this international conference dedicated to the protection, preservation of cultural heritage. And I'm very to have the opportunity to join you and share this platform with wonderful people. So I want to introduce my topic. So Armenian heritage at risk, the urgent need for preservation under international law. The Armenian highlands, inhabited by Armenians since antiquity and home to a kingdom of Metzhaik and Pokarhaik, are rich in a wide variety of centuries-old monuments created by the indigenous population. The present-day Republic of Armenia constitutes approximately 10% of the historical Armenian highlands. Consequently, a substantial part of the Armenian cultural heritage today lies outside the borders of the Republic of Armenia. Throughout the 20th century, Armenian cultural heritage located within the territories of present-day Turkey and Azerbaijan was subjected to systematic neglect, destruction, and appropriation policies that have continued into the 21st century. During the establishment of the Republic of Azerbaijan in 1918, the newly created state incorporated a number of historically Armenian populated regions, including the provinces of Artsakh and Utik, the region of Nakhichevan, as well as the Kashatagh, Kashunik, and Kovsakan districts of the historic Armenian provinces of Syunik. As a result, a significant portion of the Armenian cultural heritage became situated within the borders of Azerbaijan. Historical sources provide extensive evidence confirming the Armenian identity of Artsakh and the continuity of Armenian presence in the region for millennia. Artsakh, together with the neighboring province of Utik, constituted the northeastern provinces of historical Greater Armenia. According to available historical evidence, Artsakh and Utik were closely connected with Armenian history from at least the 6th century BC, when they formed part of the frontier territories of the Armenian Yerevanduni kingdom. The Armenian nobility of Artsakh and parts of Utik preserved varied degrees of political autonomy and self-governance until the beginning of the 19th century, before the incorporation of the region into the Russian Empire. And Christianity played a fundamental role in the cultural development of Artsakh. Through the adoption of Christianity and the Armenian alphabet, the population of Artsakh became an active participant in Armenian literary and cultural traditions. From the 5th century onward, the region witnessed the creation of thousands of Armenian Christian monuments, including monasteries, churches, chapels, monuments, and other architectural structures. These monuments, together with approximately 3,000 Armenian inscriptions and hundreds of manuscripts, constitute significant evidence of the Armenian historical and cultural presence in the region. More than 5,600 cultural heritage monuments have been officially registered within the territory of the Republic of Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh. The majority of these monuments represent Armenian Christian heritage dating from the 4th to the 19th century. The scale and continuity of this heritage represent one of the most significant indicators of the historical and cultural connections between Artsakh and Armenian civilization. The existence of thousands of Armenian churches, monasteries, inscriptions, manuscripts, and archaeological sites demonstrates the long-term cultural presence of Armenians in the region. Therefore, the destruction, alteration, and appropriation of Armenian cultural heritage in Artsakh is not only a matter of damage to individual monuments, but also concern the disruption of collective memory, historical continuity, and cultural identity. From the very beginning of its existence, the Republic of Azerbaijan pursued a discriminatory policy toward Armenian cultural heritage. Since its establishment in 1918, Azerbaijan has consistently implemented anti-Armenian state policies that deny the historical presence and cultural identity of Armenians within its territory. The rights of the Armenians of Artsakh to preserve their historical identity and cultural heritage were systematically violated both during the Soviet period and after Azerbaijan's independence. Recognizing that cultural heritage constitutes a fundamental element in preserving collective memory, social cohesion, historical continuity, and ethnic identity, the Azerbaijani authorities consistently sought to undermine the cultural foundations of the Armenian population of Artsakh through the destruction, falsification, and appropriation of its historical heritage. This policy emerged during the early decades of Soviet rule. Between the 1920s and 1940s, numerous medieval Armenian churches and monasteries were destroyed, representing one of the earliest manifestations of a systematic policy directed against Armenian Christian heritage. During the 1950s and 1960s, following the Cessation of the Soviet anti-religious campaign, the destruction of Armenian churches, monasteries, chapels, and medieval cemeteries continued under the Azerbaijani authorities. Following the collapse and the Soviet Union and Azerbaijan's declaration of independence in 1991, the destruction and appropriation of Armenian cultural heritage entered a new phase. Armenian monuments located in Nakhichevan and on the right bank of the river Kur were subjected to intensified destruction, and extensive evidence demonstrates that this process has continued into the present days. One of the most striking examples of the destruction of Armenian cultural heritage in the post-Soviet period was the complete elimination of the medieval Armenian cemetery of Old Juga in Nakhichevan. During the following years, from 1998 to 2006, when there were so-called peaceful times, the Azerbaijani army, using heavy construction equipment, demolished and pulled down thousands of carved khachkars and tombstones of the medieval Armenian cemetery of Old Juga in Nakhichevan, turning the area freed from the unique historical and cultural samples of the cemetery into a shooting area. The losses in Nakhichevan include more than 127 churches, the oldest dating back to the 1st to the 4th centuries, and the newest dating back to the 17th century. More than 50,000 khachkars created in the 5th to the 7th centuries, and more than 20,000 tombstones. The area, deprived of its unique historical and cultural character, was subsequently transmitted into a military firing range. Referring to the destruction of Julfa's khachkars, Hamlet Petrosyan states in his article, The Iconography of the Khachkars of Julfa, in the 17th century, Julfa contained approximately 10,000 khachkars. By the end of the 20th century, around 3,000 remained. At the end of 2002, as a result of the act of barbarism organized by the government of Azerbaijan, the last remaining khachkars of Julfa were destroyed. The destruction of heritage continued on a large scale throughout the 44-day war of 2020, which has not ended to this day. The targeting of Armenian cultural heritage was also evident during the 1988 to 1994 Artsakh War, when numerous Armenian Christian monuments were damaged or destroyed as a result of artillery shelling and missile attacks. Among the affected sites were the 19th century Holy Savior Gazanchetsot Cathedral in Shushi, the monastery complex of Gandzasar, Amaras, and Dadivank, as well as the churches of Tsitsarnavank and Vangasar, Yeghnasar Monastery, and dozens of other sculpture monuments. The policy of targeting Armenian heritage continued in subsequent decades. During the 4-day war of 2 to 5 April 2016, Azerbaijani forces severely damaged the chapel of the village of Talish through bombardment, in violation of the principles of international humanitarian law. In this context, the statement of the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Fatou Bensouda, is particularly significant. An attack against religious and historic buildings destroys the roots of people and irreversibly affects its social practices and structures. During the 2020 44-day war and its aftermath, numerous documented cases demonstrate the targeting of Armenian cultural heritage in Artsakh. These actions, carried out in violation of international legal norms, represented a continuation of the long-term policy toward Armenian culture, monuments, and historical sites. The appropriation of Armenian cultural heritage represents another significant dimension of Azerbaijan's policy toward Armenian historical and cultural identity. This process, which originated in the 20th century and intensified after the 44-day war, has sought to transform the historical narrative of the region by denying Armenian culture continuity and attributing Armenian monuments to alternative historical traditions. The ultimate objective of this policy is to legitimize territorial claims by constructing a historical narrative according to which Azerbaijan or allegedly related ancestral groups have inhabited these territories for centuries. Ethnocultural discrimination has become an integral component of contemporary armed conflicts, as demonstrated by the war against the ethnic Armenian population of Nagorno-Karabakh. The 44-day war launched on September 27, 2020, followed by the blockade of the Lachin Corridor, and the military offensive of September 2023 resulted in the forced displacement of approximately 150,000 Armenians from their historical homeland. Severed from historical environment, sacred sites, and communal way of life, the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh have been deprived of the ability to access, preserve, and transmit their cultural heritage. This directly impacts more than 5,600 officially registered monuments in the territory, the majority of which constitute Armenian Christian heritage dating from the 4th to the 19th century. The extensive destruction, desecration, and ongoing threats to these sites pose profound violation of cultural rights, creating severe and often irreversible challenges to the preservation of their collective identity and cultural continuity. Our study of ICC and ICTY jurisprudence indicates that the ethnic Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh must be considered forcibly displaced. The coercive conditions created by fear, despair, the destruction of monuments, the threats of life left civilians with no genuine and free choice to either stay or leave the territory. Today, the Armenian heritage is being destroyed in its entirety. The right of Artsakh Armenians to live following their identity have been constantly violated by Azerbaijan, both during the apparent peace and their murderous wars. Among the endangered monuments, the experts specify the Amaras Monastery, which, according to the testimonies of Armenian historians, was founded by Grigory Lusavoric at the beginning of the 4th century, Vankasar Church, the monastery of Yerishe the Apostle, the monasteries of Dadivank, Gandzasar, Charektar, Titernavank, Kataro Monastery, Kchavank, Spitak Khachvank, Yeritsmangans Monastery, thousands of Kachkars, tombstones, Azov Paleolithic Cave, the Norkar Miravan tombs, palaces, bridges, historic quarters, Kusanats Church, as well as the Palace of Melik Yegan, and many other monuments are on the threat of destruction as well. The forced removal from historical monuments in Artsakh, the direct threat to their existence, the numerous treasures already destroyed or desecrated, and the inability to live authentically according to their identity have created insurmountable challenges in preserving the rituals, beliefs, traditions, and festivals associated with ancient and medieval sites, churches, and pilgrimage destinations. In many international documents, the destruction of heritage is considered a violation of human rights. Among these documents, a key one is the 2016 report of the UN Special Rapporteur on Cultural Rights, Karima Benoun, titled Deliberate Destruction of Cultural Heritage as a Violation of Human Rights, which highlighted the impact of heritage destruction on people. The Human Rights Council and its resolution on the protection of cultural rights and heritage in situation of armed conflicts confirmed that the destruction of cultural values disrupts the process of exercising cultural rights. The UN Special Rapporteur on Cultural Rights, Karima Benoun, notes, attacks on heritage are primarily attacks on people and their rights. The conduct of hostilities during the 44-day war was accompanied by extensive damage to Armenian cultural heritage. Numerous churches, monuments, museums, educational institutions, archaeological sites, and cultural landmarks were affected by military operations. Throughout the conflict, civilian settlements, including Shushi, Martagert, Martuni, and Hadrut, were subjected to repeated bombardment. As a result, substantial damage was inflicted upon museums, archaeological resources, archival collections, educational institutions, and numerous monuments forming part of the cultural landscape of Artsakh. The obliteration of historical traces in Artsakh occurs along two main directions. First is the destruction of cultural heritage, and second, appropriation of cultural heritage. By destroying churches in Artsakh, Azerbaijan severs the spiritual bond of Artsakh Armenians with these sacred sites, depriving them of vital spaces for rituals and prayers, thereby hindering their future ability to conduct religious practices. Between 2020 to 2026, several Armenian churches and religious monuments were destroyed or severely damaged, including Zoravor Holy Mother of God Church in Mekhakavan, Saint Sarkis Church in Mokhrenis, Saint Mina Church in Mayramadzor, Holy Savior Church in Verdzor, the church in Tanzatap, Kanatjam Church in Shushi, the 19th century Megretsot Church in Shushi, the targeting of the Holy Savior Kazanchetsot Cathedral in Shushi, including the destruction of its dome and the removal of inscriptions and Christian symbols under the guise of restoration, further illuminate this policy, along with the continued damage to it, such as the erasure of inscriptions, destruction of bas-relief, and obliteration of cross symbols under the guise of restoration, serve as stark evidence of this policy, having violated not only its international obligations assumed thereby under various conventions, but also the Hague and Geneva principles prohibiting the targeting of cultural values during armed conflicts, UNESCO conventions and customary norms during the war. Azerbaijan shelled twice the Holy Savior Gaziantep Church with point-blank strike, as a result of which the dome of the 19th century church severed external and internal parts were damaged. Apart from being a violation of customary norms, the targeting of the church was declared illegal on the ground of intolerance and racial hatred and condemned by the resolution of the International Court of Justice of 7 December 2021. The destruction was touched upon by the PACE resolution as well. Azerbaijan also removed the cross from the 7th century Vankasar church, damaged the inscriptions and cross reliefs of the medieval Saint Sarkis and Saint Grigor Church in Tsar, and dismantled the 50-meter illuminated cross near the Dushan village close to Stepanakert. The protection of cultural heritage during armed conflict is governed by the 1954 Hague Convention for the Protection of Cultural Property in the event of armed conflicts, its protocols, and the principles and rules of international humanitarian law, including customary international humanitarian law. The principle of distinction requires parties to an armed conflict to distinguish at all times between military objectives and civilian objects and prohibits directing attacks against civilian objects. This obliteration is reflected in Article 48 and 52 of Additional Protocol 1 and in customary international humanitarian law, particularly ICRC customarily IHL Rule 7, which requires distinction between civilian objects and military objectives, and Rule 10, which provides that civilian objects are protected against attack. Since cultural property, including churches, monasteries, museums, archaeological sites, and historic monuments, constitutes civilian property, it may not be made the object of attack unless and only for such time as it becomes a military objective. The broader obligation to distinguish civilians from combatants, reflected in Rule 1 of customary international humanitarian law, further reinforced the civilian character of cultural property by requiring military operation to be directed exclusively against lawful military objectives. The principle of proportionality, codified in Article 51, 5b of Additional Protocol 1 and reflected in Rule 14 of customary international humanitarian law, prohibits attacks expected to cause incidental damage to civilian objects, including cultural property, where such damage will be excessive in relation to the concrete and direct military advantage anticipated. The obligation to take precautions in attack, established in Article 57 of Additional Protocol 1 and reflected in Rules 15 to 21 of customary international humanitarian law requires parties to take all feasible precautions in planning and conducting attacks in order to avoid or at least minimize incidental damage to cultural property. Beyond these general rules governing the conduct of hostilities, international humanitarian law affords cultural property a distinct level of protection. Article 53 of Additional Protocol 1 and Rule 38 of Customary International Humanitarian Law prohibits acts of hostilities directed against historical monuments, places of worship, works of art, and other cultural properties constituting the cultural or spiritual heritage of peoples. Any departure from this protection is permitted only under exceptional circumstances of imperative military necessity, subject to strict conditions established by Article 4 of the 1954 Hague Convention and Article 6 of the 1999 Second Protocol. After the complete depopulation of Armenians of Artsakh in 2023, Azerbaijan has turned the historical layers of the 19th century's Meretot Saint Asvazatin Church in Shushi, constructed in 1838, into a garbage heap, removed the cross from the 7th century Vankasar Church, toppled the cross of the Stepanakert Cathedral, and through construction interventions, erased the unique inscriptions and cross engravings from the medieval churches of Surp Sarkis and Surp Grigor in Zar, also Charektar Church, among others. Since 2021, monitoring conducted by Caucasus Heritage WAS has repeatedly identified Armenian monuments exposed to a high risk of destruction, including the Holy Mother of God Church of Madadashen, the Holy All Savior Church of Metztager, the Holy Mother of God Church of Dagavart, St. Yerishe Church of Mataris, the Holy All Savior Church of Talish, the Holy Mother of God Church of Avedaranot, Kavakavang Church in Jerakus, the Monastery of Tsakuris in Patkatakh, and the Holy Mother of God Church of Karintak, among many others. Most recently, on 21 April 2026, it became evident that the Holy Mother of God Cathedral, Surp Asvazatin Hovanu Maitajar in Stepanakert, had been completely demolished. The cathedral was one of the most significant spiritual and architectural landmarks of Artsakh. Designed by architect Gagik Eranosyan, the cathedral embodied the synthesis of traditional Armenian architectural forms of Zvartnots and Tripsime and contemporary construction technologies. During March 2026, Azerbaijani authorities also demolished St. Hakop Church, located on Hekimian Street in Stepanakert, constructed in 2007. The church appears, based on available imagery, to have been razed in its entirety together with the surrounding complex. The destruction likely encompassed numerous khachkars and memorial monuments situated within the church grounds, including a prominent khachkar created by sculptor Robert Askarian. On May 4, 2026, Caucasus Heritage Watch documented the complete destruction of the Bell Tower memorial dedicated to the centennial of the Armenian genocide. The monument was located within the memorial complex of the military Parthenon in Stepanakert and held exceptional symbolic significance because it contained relics of Armenian genocide victims transferred from Derzur. In response to these acts, the Caucasus Muslim Board publicly denied the cultural heritage status of the Holy Mother of God Cathedral of Stepanakert and sought to justify its demolition. In an official statement, the institution asserted that dismantling of two structures unlawfully constructed in Stepanakert during the period of occupation of Azerbaijani territories cannot in any way be preserved as the destruction of religious or cultural heritage. The statement further maintained that both legal and moral grounds exist for the demolition of structures illegally erected unlawfully in territories from which Azerbaijan had been displaced. argued that such constructions lack legitimacy and may therefore be removed. From the perspectives of international law, such arguments raise complex legal questions concerning the relationship between territorial claims and the protection of cultural heritage. Contemporary international cultural heritage law does not condition the protection of cultural property upon the political status of a territory. The degree of international recognition enjoyed by the authorities exercising effective control or compelling claims of sovereignty. Rather, the relevant international instruments focus primarily on the cultural, historical, religious, and scientific significance of the property concerned. Moreover, the characterization of Nagorno-Karabakh exclusively as an occupied territory does not exhaust the legal dimensions of the conflict. International law simultaneously recognizes the principle of territorial integrity and the right of peoples to self-determination. The latter beginning ensured in Article 1.2 of the Charter of UN and reaffirmed of the common Article 1 of both the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. These instruments affirm that all peoples have the right freely to determine their political status and to pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. Accordingly, the absence of widespread international recognition does not in itself preclude the existence of de facto institutions exercising governmental functions. More importantly, under contemporary international cultural heritage law, the protection afforded to cultural heritage does not depend upon the recognition or non-recognition of a particular political entity. Cultural heritage remains protected because of its intrinsic cultural, historical, religious, and civilizational value, irrespective of change in territorial control or the legal status of the territory in which it is situated. The destruction of Armenian religious and cultural monuments in Nagorno-Karabakh must therefore be assessed within the broader framework of international obligations relating to the protection of cultural heritage. Attempts to justify the demolition of churches and other heritage sites solely on the basis of disrupted territorial claims are difficult to reconcile with the contemporary international legal framework, which increasingly recognize cultural heritage as a universal value and an integral component of the identity, cultural memory, and cultural continuity of communities and peoples. Among the targets of Azerbaijan's policy of Armenophobia, alongside churches, are crosstones, Kachkars, which have faced widespread destruction. Having traversed over a millennium of historical development, they also represent a contemporary cultural manifestation, both through their historical presence and the installation of hundreds in Artsakh over the last 30 years. Azerbaijan's systematic campaign in this regard is particularly understood by the destruction of several significant crosstones. Among these are the crosstones of Arakel village in the Hadrut region destroyed in 2020, these of the memorial complex dedicated to the Hadrut city freedom fighters, the unique 14th century crossstone of the Lachin cemetery, and several crossstones dating from the 14th to 16th centuries. Additionally, in 2022, the Chapel of the Union of Karabakh War veterans and the surrounding crossstones in Mataghis were destroyed, along with unique 20th and 30th century crossstones of the Armenian Greek Old Cemetery in Shushi. The crossstones dedicated to the Artsakh Liberation War in Nuhtadzor, Hadrut region, and Vorotan city have been demolished. The crossstone placed in the area of Kavakavang Church also disappeared. On January 7, 2024, it was revealed that the memorial crossstone erected in October 2021 in memory of the heroes of Artsakh Liberation War on Daniel Varuzhan Street in Martakert have been destroyed, along with two crossstones adjacent to the Aghanus village, Akhpur in Kashatagh. Concerning this, it should be noted that the international targeting, damage, or destruction of Khachkars is strictly prohibited under international humanitarian law. In 2010, Armenian cross stone art, symbolism, and craftsmanship of Khachkars was inscribed on the UNESCO representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. This landmark recognition directly satisfies the criteria of Article 10A of the 1999 Second Protocol to the Hague Convention of 1954, which requires protected cultural property to be of the greatest importance for humanity. Consequently, physical Khachkars are entitled to the highest level of international protection, including enhanced protection status. Under Article 15 of the 1999 Second Protocol, acts against such recognized cultural property are classified as serious violations. And under international law, committing any of these acts is classified as a war crime, invoking direct individual criminal responsibility and prosecution for both the perpetrators and those who ordered the attack. Azerbaijan is systematically destroyed monuments that commemorate the liberation struggle and victory of Nagorno-Karabakh War and the memory of the victims of Armenian genocide of 1915. Prominent examples of this chain of destruction include the obliteration of the memorial complexes dedicated to the freedom fighters of Hadrut, as well as memorials in Shushi commemorating the Armenian genocide, the Nagorno-Karabakh War, and the Greatest Patriotic War. Furthermore, the wave of destruction did not spare the monument just to Surpast Vatatin Church, constructed in 1904. In the village of Madatashen in the Askeran district, dedicated to the victims of the Artsakh Liberation War. In the village of Azokh in Hadrut, 3 separate monuments were destroyed. The monuments, including the Cross Shepherd monument in Zangelan and the Reborn Talish monument, were also demolished. The wave of destruction intended by Azerbaijan aimed at erasing memory extended even to monuments dedicated to the Great Patriotic War and these commemorating heroes and victims. Marshal Armeniak Conference bust in Hadrut Metztager, and the bust of Hovannes Tevosyan, the statue of Vazgen Sarkisyan, the statue of Alexander Masnikyan, the statue of Pharaoh Ashot Gulyan, the statue of Stepan Shalmyan in Stepanakert and Anatoly Zilevich was destroyed by Azerbaijan. And also the statue of Shah Lazar were destroyed. After the war, the historical cemeteries of Artsakh became targets for Azerbaijan under the guise of large-scale road construction activities. In particular, historical Armenian cemeteries located near the roads after war, Azerbaijan targeted also the historical cemeteries in Artsakh. In May 2023, the historical cemeteries of Berzor, Syghnagh, in Shosh region, Askeran region, and Hadrut region were also damaged by Azerbaijan. 2 more historical cemeteries were destroyed in Shushi between October 5 and November 3. Using special equipment. The illustrated tombstones that the Azerbaijani people had partially destroyed during the Soviet era were also destroyed, along with the old cemetery of Shushi. The old Armenian Greek cemetery of Shushi, where Khachkars from the 12th to 13th centuries were authenticated, was also destroyed. This testified to the fact that the Shushi plateau was inhabited as early as the 20th centuries. But as I will show at the end of my report, Azerbaijan is Islamizing Shushi and falsifying its history. Azerbaijan has dug bungars in the vicinity of the burial ground of Gavurkala, early Christian Armenian settlement in Haykajur village of Martakert region, the largest early Christian Armenian settlement in the Artsakh Steppe, which includes a single hall church of the 5th to the 6th centuries and the pillar of an early Christian monument. In the 1950s, one of the earliest Armenian inscriptions from the Artsakh steppe was found here. The historic Halivori Bridge of Hadrut region, which was constructed in 1835, was included an inspiration indication its authenticity was destroyed by Azerbaijan. We can see also the destruction of villages. A complete demolition of Mokhrenis village, complete demolition of Karitag village, the complete demolition of Mayramadzor village, complete demolition of Zamzor village, and also the contemporary monuments. As I stated in my speech, Azerbaijan destroyed both historical values and contemporary monuments. The 51 sculptures that were produced as a result of different symposia and were hosted at a sculpture park adjacent to the Shushi State Museum of Fine Arts are among the modern monuments that have been destroyed. In this case, the rights of creative individuals are also being violated. The State Museum of Geology, named after Grigori Gaprelians in Shushi, also suffered significant damages. The building of the History Museum of Hadrut, named after Artur Mkrtchyan, was blown up, and the building of the library named after Avedik Isahakyan, the building of the National Assembly of Artsakh, and other structures was demolished. And the second part is the appropriation of cultural heritage. Azerbaijan's falsification and appropriation of historical facts about Armenian heritage, along with the alteration of identity and alteration of function, constitute violations of the cultural rights of the Armenians of Artsakh. Such actions sever the genuine connection to one's history, grounded in accurate knowledge, and impede the ability to pass it on to future generations, thereby disrupting the link to identity. Through this policy, Azerbaijan distorts the true history and authenticity of heritage. This process of appropriating Armenian cultural symbols and history includes the Albanization of Armenian churches, the denial of Armenian identity, the remaining of cities, villages, and streets throughout the territory of Artsakh, the Islamization, Turkification, and Russification of Armenian settlements, the falsified restoration of churches, the disruption of ritual practices, and more. The theory of Albanization of Armenian churches was established and solidified within Azerbaijani state policy since the mid-20th century. It pursued the aim to proclaim the long-existing Christian Albanians as the ancestors of Azerbaijanis and to frame Armenian churches as the heritage of these elite forebears. This falsification seeks not only to undermine the historical roots of the Armenian people, but also to eliminate their historical right to live and create in the region. This theory, repeatedly condemned by international recognized scholars and various organizations, is exemplified by Azerbaijan's enlistment of the approximately 2,000 and 3,000 Christian Udi people within its borders in efforts to deny the Armenian identity of spiritual structures. Very recently, the well of Albanization turned on Gandzasar as well, considering the Kachkar with an inscription, the entrance and the interior area of the church rich with inscriptions to be false. Even Dadivang, moreover, 200 Armenian inscriptions can be found, and not a single letter in the language of another people is declared to be Albanian. The Amaras monastery, dating back to the 4 to 5 centuries, is declared to be Albanian as well. Albanization of the Serbkach church in Hadrut and Surpastvatadzin church in Zakuri. Also, the examples of Albanization. Azerbaijan has also declared the Surp Yerishe church in Matagis and the Saint Hovannes church in Togh as Albanian. Representatives of the so-called Albanian Udi community desecrated and damaged the unique shrine of the Armenian church Jizernavang in the Kashatagh region of Artsakh, performing anti-Armenian rituals. The threat of Albanization also extends to the Armenian Church of Qabatabank, which bears a unique inscriptions. The expropriation process was not impeded also by the decision of the International Court of Justice of The Hague of December 7, 2021, showing the overt disregard of Azerbaijan for international law. Thus, we can record that the only reason that Azerbaijan did not destroy some churches was simply the impossibility of doing so. However, as we can see today, it was actually possible, perhaps due to impunity, to falsify the history of an entire nation. Moreover, Azerbaijan policy of appropriation is also manifested through Islamization, particularly affecting the entire heritage of Shushi. The policy of expropriation did not bypass the sovereign territory of the Republic of Armenia. Thus, through the exhibition of Western Azerbaijan in Culture Memory, opened in the National Museum of Art of Azerbaijan on December 15, 2023, Azerbaijan tries to present the history of Yerevan under the coined term Western Azerbaijan. The Academy of Science of Azerbaijan has established a special department for the newly coined term Western Azerbaijan. This is no less than a direct threat to Armenia and its territorial integrity. Today, approximately 150,000 Artsakh Armenians, due to Azerbaijani discriminatory treatment, are deprived of the right to participate in Artsakh cultural life, visit pilgrimage sites, historical and cultural places, pay respects at the graves of their relatives, and perform religious rites in churches. This has led to the suspension of the continuity of memory and the social remembrance of the past. Despite the variety of guarantees of cultural rights, it should be noted that the first universal guarantee of cultural rights is Article 27 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which states, "Everyone has the right freely to participate in the cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts, and to share in scientific advancement of its benefits." The commentary by UNESCO on this article has confirmed that the right to participate in the cultural life of the community also guarantees the right of every individual to access cultural heritage, participate in cultural practices, and enjoy them. Another key sources for examining cultural rights is Article 15 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, which defines the right to culture in Section 1A as the right of every individual to take part in cultural life. In regard to the term participation in cultural life, it is essential to emphasize that it goes beyond passive involvement, implying the possibility of active engagement in the process of cultural enrichment through heritage. It is a multi-layered process that includes interconnected components such as access to cultural life, direct participation, and the opportunity to contribute. As for the process of participation in cultural life, it includes the right of every individual to act freely, either alone or with the community, to express their identity, to engage in various societal processes, and to participate in cultural practices. Through the study of the concept of participation, access, and contribution in cultural rights, we can affirm that human rights extending to all also apply to each individual, including 150,000 Armenians of Artsakh. According to UN General Comment number 21, the right to culture is violated not only through the destruction of heritage, but also by denying access to cultural sites. In this context, Armenians are cut off from identity-defining churches, pilgrimage routes, monasteries, and cemeteries. According to General Comment number 21, the right of participate in cultural life encompasses three interconnected and indivisible dimensions. First, participation in cultural life. Second, access to cultural life. And third, contribution to cultural life. The forced displacement of the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh disrupted all these three dimensions.
Dear Armina, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to say that it's time already to sum up because we have another speaker too. So it will be great you summarize and we finish. Okay.
International legal instruments emphasize that cultural rights and cultural heritage must be respected and protected, including during and after war. Nevertheless, in the case of Artsakh Armenians, these protections largely remained ineffective in practice. In this context, guaranteeing the right to pilgrimage emerged as an essential mechanism for protecting the cultural rights of the displaced population, ensuring safe and unhindered access to major Armenian spiritual and historical sites, including Dadivang, Gandzasar, Amaraz, Gchavang, Tigranakert, and Azov Cave, is necessary to preserve historical continuity, collective memory, and the cultural identity of the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh. And finally, everyone, including Artsakh Armenians, should have the right to participate in the cultural life of their community, have access to their own cultural areas, enjoy it, acquire knowledge and skills, and pass on its tangible and intangible cultural heritage to future generations. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the detailed information that you provided. I think it's a very important topic and it's not talked much. That's why we wanted to raise awareness about this. And just to people who don't have the context, Nagorno-Karabakh, it's Artsakh, it's historically inhabited by Armenians, and after the last war, it was completely occupied by Azerbaijan. So Armenians, 120,000 Armenians, indigenous Armenians, were forced to leave their homes. So it's now under Azerbaijani occupation. Thank you so much for the presentation. And as I said, you can send your questions by email, and Armina Tigranyan will be pleased to answer. Now we will have break.
Yes, let me just tell something one more time. Thank you very much for this very important session regarding Armenia. These days we actually had the opportunity to speak about different countries, and for us as being like organization in Armenia and Armenians, it's very important also to share about the information that we have. Of course, it would be very nice also to have opportunity to listen to the other side. It's always good, especially when we are speaking about the conflict and situation. But anyways, thank you very much for this opportunity. So our next speaker is already here, but we will have 5 minutes break. I mean, we have time still. I will turn music. And I wanted to tell that actually we saw your messages regarding the certificate and about the registration forms. So we got a lot of messages, more messages even than people we had during our Zoom calls, actually. So that's why we will answer all your messages until the end of the next week. So don't worry about that. Don't worry your certificate. Don't worry about your participation applications. Just be a bit patient and enjoy the sessions, especially the last 2 sessions. Thank you. Let's have a rest a bit and come back right after the music.
Գեղեցիկ ես տուն Արարատ հեյջանեի նկարը տարբերեք ու Հայաստան է կողմը ջան հոգուտը գալիս է ինձ գնաց էտ էյլի լայլե լուլու ջան 5 տարի նայում եմ քեզ Հայաստան է կողմը ջան Ամեն օրը տարբեր ես դու Արիր տարիր ինձի ջան Չեմ ուզում վերադառնամ Կենացդ հեյլի լայլե լուլու ջան լուլու ջան Հեյլի լայլե լուլու ջան Ախարարատա Ախարարատա Ախարարատ ախարարա Այդ օրը եկավ հասավ Բաժանվելու քեզ մեջան Սրտով չեմ բաժնվում ես Խոստալիս եմ քեզի ջան Մի օր չենք բաժնվի մենք Կենացդ հեյլի լայլե լուլու ջան լուլու ջան Հեյլի լայլե լուլու ջան Ախարարատա Ախարարատա Ախարարատ ախարարա Արարա Մերի սիրուն արարատ Արարա Սիրտս քո անունով արարա Մերի սիրուն արարատ Արարա Սիրտս քո անունով արարատ Մերի սիրուն արարատ Արարա Սիրտս քո անունով արարատ Մերի սիրուն արարատ Արարա Սիրտս քո անունով
Thank you, Goharik, for the nice music. It's my pleasure to introduce our second speaker. We are honored to welcome Dr. Emma Harutyunyan, PhD in architecture, professor, and head of the chair of theory and history of architecture and heritage at the National University of Architecture and Construction of Armenia. Dr. Harutyunyan is an accomplished architect, researcher, lecturer with more than 20 years of teaching experience. Alongside her academic career, Harutyunyan is a practicing architect and the author of a number of residential and public building projects. She is also an active member of International Council on Monuments and Sites and the Armenian Union of Architects. So contributing to both the academic and professional advancement of architectural heritage preservation. In today's presentation, she will explore how digital technologies are transforming the documentation, conservation, promotion of cultural heritage, demonstrating how innovation can help safeguard our shared heritage for future generations. Please join me to welcome Dr. Emma Harutyunyan. The floor is yours. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for introductions and sorry for my video because I have a problem with this video, but I hope my presentation will be visible. Can I share my screen?
Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you. So I would like today to talk with you about digitalization of cultural heritage, but I would like to share with you our experience at National University of Architecture and Construction of Armenia in education system, how we went to the digitalization of from which stage we have started and in which stage of digitalization now we are. So I would like to very quickly introduce you our education programs with cultural heritage, what we are teaching to our students, and to the end of the education, which skills they have. So, and first year, when our students entering to our university, they are starting to work only by hand, handmade drawings, and we are starting with our churches. They need to draw by hand our churches and after show the volumes and understand how it built. And another exercise on which they are working, it's our alphabet, our letters, which is also a very important part of our cultural heritage. And it's important that architects, students could understand philosophy of our letters, because it's another talk. It's another, we can even organize a special conference on Armenian alphabet and letters, but I would like to say it, so for us, it's also important to teach to our students this culture of our alphabet. Then we are taking to our students, of course, for the open lessons in situ, in the sites, and explaining them our churches, how they are built, all architecture features, and not only architecture, but also construction features also. Then on third year, students starting the work also with different softs, AutoCAD, Revit, Archicad, and so a lot of softs in which our students on third year of bachelor, they are very fluent. So some examples of the works, and of course they are coming to the fourth year bachelor projects. It's some examples of them. Of course, they are working, or they are going to the site. They are taking measurements of the churches, of the monuments, of course, also by hand, and of course with digital tools also. They are in fourth year, they are very, very fluent, and they can work with photogrammetry, with 3D models, and a little bit later I'll show how they are working on it. And then on a master programs also, in a master diplomas or theses, also we can see a lot of digital elements, digital models of monuments, of cultural heritage. So some examples of this digitalization, and just many years ago, maybe 2011, we had a very perfect master course with Milano Politecnico, and started from that times. We created a very important laboratory at our university, and started from 2011, our students working in that laboratory for digitalization of monuments. And even this program received a Europa Nostra prize in 2015, because it was completely very influential and very achieved very good results. Then we have different international programs with, in particular in the Jacobus Plus project with Spain, France, German, Belgium, so with the different partners. In the framework of our this project, our students working also in digitalization, but protection of cultural heritage and digitalization means not only documentation, but also survey of monuments. And we develop at our university also this survey of monuments. And for example, we are working with Göttingen University many years, and even before COVID, we have started to work with them on survey of deterioration of the stone, of the natural stone. And we organized with our partners 3 summer schools. And during these 3 years, we had a lot of work in situ. We used a lot of digital tools for survey, of course, and then we have published some scientific articles also. So some photos how they are working on monasteries on the site. Then I would like to focus more how our students and our professionals working in digitalization. We have special course in Master 1 on first year of Master, how they are working with digital tools and how they are documenting some monuments. This from the beginning. This course starting with scanning of a monument. Of course, they are at the beginning. They are receiving point cloud, and after progressing this point cloud, they are receiving like model, and after, as a result, they are receiving informative model. And this model, our students then they can use in a beam sphere, for a beam system. As you know, beam, also our students started to use also age beam, heritage beam, because it's also very important for us. And I would like to show some elements how for digitalization what that they are using. They scanned monuments. After they are connecting, they are putting in a GIS system because it's very important to understand the mapping of monuments also, and some examples how the group of students they have worked in. If somebody have been in Armenia, they know our well-known Mate Nadaran, this Institute of Manuscripts. They have scanned all Mate Nadaran with a big with a 2 group of students, and they connected them in this system. And so you can see some results of from the different years. And another case is how it's called, in concert hall, not far from our university. It's a very, of course, famous Soviet modernism example of cultural heritage. So also a group of students they have worked in, and for the Master 1, it's, I think, in my opinion, it's good result how they could receive point clouds and after beam models. What they are using? They are using, our students using a lot of instruments. They are, as for photogrammetric survey, they are using drones, cameras, and university has all these equipment. And after they're starting to image processing, image cleaning all the photos and combining them. And after they are generating point cloud. So after point cloud, they can, I'll show it, you can see here some point cloud of another monument, Karmelavor, not far from Yerevan. And example of Odzun, for example, Odzun Church in northern part of Armenia, this one. It's again work of our young specialists. but it's important because these measurements, this photogrammetric modeling is very exact. And when we are comparing, when we have started at the beginning, many years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, we started to use these methods, photogrammetry and scanning. We comparing with measurements on the side, and we understood that it's very clear and very exact models. So we can use it for and take from these models also plans, facades, sections. So it's giving us all information about a monument, and we can use it for further the concept of, for example, for preservation, for restoration, and for all things what we need to do with the monument. We can use all drawings receiving from these models. And some examples from a small church, Garmirabur. And these sections we received from the photogrammetric modeling. And now I would like to show the final result, what we have as a result finally. It's clear, exact model of the church. So it's very important to receive even for monitoring. It's important to have these digital twins and this digital information, because year by year we can survey all monuments and understand if there are some changes or some problems with our monuments. Also, we behind of photogrammetry, in which we are using only cameras, we are using drones, also laser scanning. Students using it. We have compared the results which we are receiving from laser scanning and from photogrammetry. For architecture conservation, for architecture preservation, it's almost easier to use photogrammetry, and for our students or for professionals, it's easy to use it. But in any case, we are, of course, working also with laser scanning, because it's giving us more precise information and all full information about the building. And as you remember, I'll show you some examples, of course, with laser scanning, but just Notre Dame, after the fire, how they could make this fantastic restoration of Notre Dame, because just before fire, they have done this laser scanning, and they had all information, precise information about the Notre Dame Cathedral, and they could restore it as it was, they didn't missing any information. But it's when we are talking about this laser scanning, this information, data information, it's very important not only for the monuments, of course, but also for all buildings. But I would like to show important thing, BIM, building information modeling, as you know, and how they are using it in contemporary, for the contemporary buildings, of course, but it's working also for the monuments. And now we're working one program in which we would like to develop, to put all together all information about monument. We have choose one monument, and we have all information about geophysics, for example, geophysics of the site. We have all topography. We have geological data. We have deterioration of the stones. We have mappings and everything concerning building, and we want to put all together and work in HBIM system. And we are waiting for maybe to end of next year. We'll have final results how it's working all together, because sometimes when we are working on monument different separately, for example, separate civil engineer working on one monument and drawing or calculating some engineering parts, and architect working separate, drawings, doing his drawings. And after when we're trying to complete all together, we are finding some mistakes or some missing information. And now we're working on methodology to put from the beginning all information, all data, all documentation, even historically, archival materials, archival photos, archival information, everything together and understood. Is it and waiting for the result, what we'll find finally. So that's just, I would like to show some examples also. This is I have talked about our alphabets, and this program you can see in Graphisoft, developed by our young professor who did make this digital tool for the not development, but for the drawing of Armenian alphabet. And you can see how if some data numbers is changing on the right, it's immediately changing in all alphabet, transferring on alphabet, and not only one letter, but all alphabet changing immediately. So it's I think it's important tool for people who are working with fonts, with letters, and who are creating letters. And I think it's this one tool which is helping for to have artistic and very individual fonts for everybody. If it's interesting, I can show more about this, but if no, I can show another thing I would like to show you. Another soft which also developed by our professionals. In this soft, they tried to they created a soft which is helping for restoration or theoretical restoration of any monument. So you can see it also is in Graphisoft, and you can see by hand, you can change data by hand or by numbers. You can change everything in a right part, and you can see how it's how it's changing.
I like your answer.
All models on a left part, and this our young professor working on theoretical restorations of our church, and this soft he created especially for 3D modeling and for theoretical restoration of churches. And you can see how it's easy to work with these softs, and you can change numbers of surfaces, number of small elements. Everything is generating here from the right, and it immediately changing all model. I think it's interesting just to look how it's changing, and these curves you can see here curves. He is changing, for example, this curve, and it's immediately changing all roof of the church, and also this process going for the interior spaces also with these numbers, with these changes, everybody can change interiors, inner side of the churches also. Even for special elements, entrances, for example, for entrances, for the roofs, for the roof elements. It can be high, it can be wider, how it you can imagine, or how it's seated to the churches, to the monument. And this application could work not only for the heritage, for the monument, but also for other buildings also. I'll run maybe for the roofing, for example, we can try to put different domes on a church and understand how it is working. Especially for people who are working, scientists or people who are working with 3D reconstructions, theoretical 3D reconstruction, I think this tool is very important, will be very important to use it. So you can change everything concerning data which we have or document. And one example from at the beginning, church was just ruined, and after he created a 3D reconstruction of a 3D model of the monument, and from 3D modeling, after we have received all sections, all model, 3D model, plans, in which level you want, you can see all models. So it's not just photo, just not drawing, but it model, 3D model. So you can cut from everywhere you want, and you can see and the final renders how it was. So for theoretical restoration, I think it's one of the best tools maybe. So and also I would like to show another example. Sorry. Yeah, it's this small video we have done many years ago when we started digitalization of monuments, and we in this video we are explaining how it's working. Digitalization and photogrammetry of monuments. So we have one monument with the name of monument is Yereruik. It's very important, coming from 5th, 6th century, and we created a 3D model of by photogrammetry, cleaning with all photos, and after we develop point clouds, we regenerate this 3D model, and you can see how we can use this 3D model. We can cut it and have a lot of sections. Also horizontal, with horizontal cutting, we can have any plans. Now you can see how all plans we can have from where we would like. So it's very useful 3D model for the monuments. We have chosen this unroofed model as Yereruik, and after you'll see another model of Klozan with domed church. This is Yereruik. And after we have used this for preservation project, we have used this model for conservation works. And our civil engineer she used this model and created a conservation conservation project. And Karmravor was another model, which is also exact 3D model of the church, which we can cut to have all plans, facades, as I said, and all sections also. Then just I would like to announce that we have scientific conference on October 8 to 10. We are inviting all participants to apply for this international conference. It's calling International Conference on Architecture Heritage and Contemporary Architecture. That's all, maybe. I don't know if I have time, I can continue. If not,
Yes, you have time, but if we have questions, we can ask.
yeah, with great pleasure if you have questions.
Dear participants, feel free to raise your hands and ask questions. Yes, we have someone. You can ask.
I have questions about the course of the design. The professor said about that. This course has any scholarship, any opportunity for international student or no?
Thank you very much for the question. Yes, we have. We have international students, especially from India, from that region. In this last year, mostly we have from India. Before we had a lot of students from Iran. So we have international groups. We have Master for Restoration of Architecture Heritage, and we are we teaching there more deeper digitalization of culture heritage. But also for all architects, we are teaching also this digitalization. So you can enter you can enter our website nuaca.am, nuaca.am, and you can enter for international students. A lot of opportunities. We will be very happy to have you at our university. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Or you can write me. I can advise you how you can apply.
Thank you.
With pleasure.
Do we have any other question? I think no. I don't see any hands.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for very interesting presentation. I think it was very informative, and especially for people who are interested in this field, and they'll be happy to continue to develop their skills. I think it was very interesting and impactful. If we can continue after the break, the break will be until 11:55 Central European time.
I wanted to set it not 55 because we finished a bit early. It's 32, so maybe in 10 minutes we can come back and continue with the last speaker.
Okay.
Hello, please, I have a question. Hello, please, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning to you all. Hello, good morning to you. Please, can you hear me from your side?
Yes,
Hello,
we can.
Anna.
Go ahead with your question. We can listen to.
Okay, please, I wanted to find out how can this technology be implemented in education in terms of students who are pursuing this kind of program from the undergrad as well as the lower secondary? How can this program be integrated into the educational sector so that young children who are growing up can have a fair idea about this technology so that they can implement it in the advanced level? Do they have any fundamental theories or fundamental courses that little children at the high school and the lower secondary school can be able to engage themselves in? Thank you. Please, I hope my question is clear.
As I understood, Anna, can I answer?
Yes, sure.
If
Sure.
I understood right, your question was about how our student started to work with these technologies, yes?
Yes, that's
Yes,
it.
I would
Perfect.
like to say that for us, very important that our students continue to work by hand also. So 2 years, our bachelor consists from 4 years. So first 2 years, they need to work only by hand. But during the second year, they are studying, they have special courses for the digital programs. So they are studying AutoCAD, Revit. Our university is representative of, I think, Revit, how it's calling AutoCAD or Revit. So they are studying it, but they don't using until third year. Starting from third year, they can draw their for the design studios. They can use they need to use digital softs for their projects. Also, starting from third year, they are working with softs. They are designing with mainly Revit. And by the end of diploma for the fourth year, of course, everything they are presenting electronically and digital projects. But for the masters, we are going deeper, of course, and developing their programs. And you know what's I think what's important thing. Our students from starting from third year, they are also many of them. They are working also because our teachers, as me, as other teachers, we are also practical architects. We have our studios or working out of university, and some of them or many of us, we are taking our students to work with us to start their works. So they are for the fourth year to end of fourth year, they are fluent all in these digital tools. They are working very well, and sometimes difficult to find any free students for involved in different projects. But so they are coming for the masters as architects, as working architects, I think, and for that, for them very easy to be involved in BIM or HBM. I don't know if I answer your question.
Yes, please, it's well clear. Answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question and the answer. If we don't have any other questions, maybe we can go for the break and come back in 10 minutes.
Yeah, and one more time, thank you very much. Actually, I was not from the field, but it was super interesting to listen to you, and I learned a lot, and I was very, very proud to see what you are doing with your students. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Rằng lấy mà trong khói là rằng lấy mà trong lá khen na yes pasele mi har mar pai spasele mai noreka Inka sinti sa selem a Սպասելու ժամանակ չկա Ես սպասել եմ որ մեկը լինի Կյանքս նալիով իմ կփոխի Դու նայի հեռու ավելի Սպասելու ժամանակ չի լինի Ժամն է հիմա Ճամփայելա Ժամն է հիմա Չեմ վախենա Ինձ ասել են հեռու մի գնա Տանից լավ տեղ աշխարհում չկա Ինքս ինձ ես ասել եմ Թող որ աշխարհը իմ տունը դառնա Լինել ու ազատ իմ տունը Որ բոլորը իր տեղն ունենա Լինեն ավելի բաց սրտերը Սերը մի կորենքը դառնա Ճամփայելա Ժամն է հիմա Չեմ վախենա Ժամն է հիմա Ճամփայելա
You will feel at home in
Thank you, Goharik, for the music break.
Ակագերտաճի տակիտուն բերևատա Ակագերտաճի Իսա ինչպես աշխարհը էմնդախարևատա Իսա ինչպես աշխարհը էմնդախարևատա Էրքին քել ուշկուզի աստեղ է բեն ուշկուզի Էրքին քել ուշկուզի ինչպես աշխարհը Էմեն դախարևատա Իսա ինչպես աշխարհը Էմեն դախարևատա Սարսնձի գերթա մազերնացակ էլ շաղտալ են գերթա Յարոջ աչքի դեն կակավի նման սերանել են յարել էլ է գերթա Հայնարեն արե ջիգյարս վարե իմ սիրած յարը մինու ճարը Yare, minujare, sareri erni, duçuknarnare, hazarnerin yar sirt kemaye, karotatsaçki duçuknar yeraz, hmayvatsteski du siromuraz, haynare nare. Yare, minuciare, hainare, nare, gichiare, svare, imsiraziare, minuciare. Hazarnerin yar sirt kemaye karotatsaçki duçuknar yeraz hmayvatsteski du siromuraz haynare nare gigares vare imsiraziare minuciare haynare Yare, minuciare.
Thank you so much for the music break. I hope you enjoyed Armenian music, and you can find the links of the music that we listened today in the chat below. Our speaker is already here. I will present. It's my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker and the last one of our whole conference. So we are delighted to welcome Dr. Ania Avakian, a Cultural Heritage Manager founder of Studio Maison, an expert in cultural heritage management, museum education, and participatory learning. She holds a PhD in art history, criticism, and conservation from Institute of Arts of the National Academy of Sciences of the Republic of Armenia, an MBA in business administration and management from University of Strasbourg, and executive MBA in general management from University of York. With more than 20 years of international experience, Ani has led global cultural heritage projects, developed international partnerships, and promoted innovative approaches to heritage management and non-formal education. So today's presentation will be more detailed, how to explore participatory education and how it can transform people from passive observers into active cultural co-creators, highlighting the essential role that communities and lifelong learning play in preserving and promoting our shared cultural heritage. So, Ani Avakian, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? First of all, my voice is reaching to you
Yes.
efficiently? Okay, that's great. So, first of all, I'd like to thank Kektil Armenia for inviting me to participate on this conference. It's a great pleasure and honor to be able to sharing my professional route with you, and I hope that in the end of this presentation it will give you some hints based on my experience and experimentations. Whether you are a museum professional, an educator, a student, an archaeologist, an artist, or a researcher, or someone who is simply passionate about cultural heritage, I hope that something from my journey will resonate with your own. Before starting, I'd like also to thank the previous presenters, my colleagues, for their inspiring presentations. Each of them has presented a different way of preservation of the cultural heritage, which are very important in the process of the preservation. Though I am going to speak about a rather different way of the preservation of the cultural heritage, which is through the memory and participation of people. I'm not going to speak to you about theories and I don't know, universal formulas. It's going to be a simple presentation about own experience in different institutions during about 20 years. And all my activities throughout the 20 years were here to answer one question: how we can reduce the distance between people and cultural heritage. Before to begin, I would like to begin with you. So please take a moment to remember your most memorable encounter with cultural heritage, whether it was a museum visit, whether it was an activity in a cultural center, around an archaeological site, in a library, I don't know, wherever it was. And just without thinking a lot, what emotion comes to your mind first? What it gave it to you? I imagine it should be in your childhood, perhaps for someone in the adulthood, no matter whether it was a positive or a negative emotion. So I'd like you to write in the chat box one word, what inspired you, and meanwhile I'll tell you my first experience. So when I was a child, that was a post-Soviet period in Armenia. I'm coming from a very multicultural family. I have experienced different cultures, but I was raised in Armenia. My first visit to a museum was not really very inspiring. It gave me a lot of stress, because at the time, visiting museums were very, very restricted, and just a few rules: don't touch, don't come closer, don't speak in the way you would like. It all already created tension and the stress, and gave me an imagination that this is not a welcoming place. So probably this was one of the reasons why I have dedicated my professional life by searching ways how we can make the cultural institutions welcoming to people, because eventually the cultural heritage, first of all, belongs to the communities, to the people. So I hope we will have different experiences shared. We can also discuss it later. Thank you very much to those who took time to respond. Unfortunately, I have no access at the moment to the chat box to reflect on your answers, but I'll look at later, and I hope we'll have an engaging discussion also with the participants. So throughout 20 years, I have transferred through a pathway in the search of the methodologies, how we can make the cultural heritage accessible to everyone. And my journey started at one of the largest cultural institutions in Armenia. That's the National Gallery of Armenia, where I came years ago, right after graduating from the university. Here I was really very romantic in the beginning, as every young person who is starting its career, because I loved museums. I thought they are welcoming, even though I had this bad experience in my childhood. But while starting working there, I encountered that even though this is the largest museum with a vast and really very, very rich collection of international value, though back in the early 2000s, the exhibition halls were really, some days, really very empty, even though there were interesting exhibitions and the professional staff was really putting everything to create good content. We can think also the communication was lacking, but eventually I understood that it's the way we are kind of offering the projects, the collections to the visitors. Here at the National Gallery of Armenia, we started to create actually targeted educational programs. What that means? So at that time, I have invited some volunteer professionals, a psychologist, a pedagogue, age professionals of different age groups, and also some art historians from the museum joined our focus group to discuss and to create really adapted educational programs for each age group. So we wanted to start from the maybe earliest ages. And here, for example, in this very old photo, you see around 4 years old children attending the National Gallery, and we are trying to create a specific educational program which is interactive, gainful, joyful for them. So if I find one of these children who is grown up today and I ask the name of this sculpture, I'm approximately sure no one will remember it. So the aim of these activities were not educating or reminding them the names of the sculptors, the date that it was created. But at this age, it is important to create an emotion between the visitor and the cultural heritage in order to give them a willingness, a desire to revisit the museum. And eventually the objective of all of this chain of ideas is that these children will develop eventually a habit of constant consuming of the cultural heritage, which means visiting the sites, archaeological sites, the museums, the theaters, opera constantly, like a part of their everyday life. So here I share with you some numbers. You see, I'm not going to stop on those, but eventually this shows a gradual success in this process of the education. Eventually, we came to the point where a department in 2016, Department of Education was created at the National Gallery of Armenia. And I can probably say that even today, it continues its activities and it's really popular. So, as I've already said, the relationships begin with emotions. Children who feel welcome today become museum visitors tomorrow. At this time, it was really not common to see children sitting on the floors around the exhibition halls of this kind of huge museum. And one more thing I would add, in the beginning, it was not really easy to convince the staff, the workers at the exhibition rooms, because they were simply not used to see other visitors than intellectuals or adults just observing or just passing next to the objects, reading the etiquettes and listening to the guide. That was all. But with the time, by seeing the results of younger generation visiting to the museum, changed also the habit of and the approach of the staff. They started even to participate in the preparation process, and now it's one of the important components of the museum. Even more, I could say, it inspired other museums to develop this kind of activities around. One of the proud projects that I could emphasize is the project that we have developed for the visually impaired children. At that time, touching museum object was a taboo. It was not possible to do that. Eventually, with the curator of the museum, after discussions, we could find a solution to let the visually impaired children to also benefit from the arts. And we had great results eventually after this project. And just to give you an example, this is the cover page of the first catalog of the educational programs proposed by the National Gallery. And why the aim of sharing this with you is that all these little images that you see on the cover are created by visually impaired or blind children during the activities developed for them. I would come to the point after all this kind of journey at the museum, after years of developing educational programs. I don't say that it was finished. It's very important, but still we see that the museums have limitations. For the visitors, they are limited by distance. For instance, we had projects where we tried to organize visits of children who are living in far rural places, but we couldn't do that for everyone. The cost for many groups of the society are still suffering with social issues and spending money at visiting the museums, even though we know that in some cases those are really very low, but just the cost of arriving to the site, taking care about the meals of the day and all of this stuff is already costly. The health, we know that there are many people that are limited with different health issues, language barriers, time, and also family matters. So this was the moment when I realized that how can heritage reach to people if they cannot come to visit them. And this was how eventually within the Armenian Heritage Development Foundation, we have developed an international project called From the Museum to the Field. So this project is a 4-day project which gives an experience for the participants to explore a life cycle of a museum object. What that means? To see from the scratch how an object is discovered. In this case, I'm providing you an example of an archaeological project. And to document it, you see in these photos how children are excavating, how they are cleaning. There is a process of documentation by digitalization, and then they are coming to the laboratory of the museum to restore and to prepare the objects for an exhibition. Before exhibiting, like in this photo in the presentation, they are getting to know the work of a curator, of a museum curator, how an exhibition is put together, what actions are taken, and a part of all this process, they are getting to know also which are not really known, like an archaeologist, a museum curator, a conservator, a researcher. And actually, this project is successfully running already 5 years. We took a break for this year, but it's a great partnership between the Armenian Heritage Development Foundation, the Ararat Plain Southeast Archaeological Project, which is financed by the Singapore University, and the National Gallery of Armenia. Actually, here you see how children are engaged. I have intentionally presented you all these photos because the 4 days are really intense. If you listen to this program theoretically, you would think that children can get tired, they can get bored, or it's kind of out of their limits of understanding and capacities. But in the process, we see that these 4 days are really an adventure for children because each component is adapted professionally to their age group. Every knowledge, every information that is delivered, it's done by a hands-on, educational, interactive activities. Digital tools are really involved here. So I would say you that on the 4th day, on the day of the presentation, where we invite the parents of the participants and the children are guiding an excursion, an activity educational for their parents about the exhibition they have built. The end is usually very emotional because during these 4 days, a part of all this process, they are getting too much attached to each other. So Usually this program is run during the summer holidays when also our partners are in Armenia doing their excavations around Vedi Fortress. This is a moment where they have finished teamwork, and you can see from their faces how satisfied they are to see the results. So this is also another important thing. When we develop the project, it's very important to think about the limit, because the moment of frustration is very easy. So it always needs to be architected, designed in a way that children will arrive to their goal, and they should be satisfied. But eventually, we can see that, unfortunately, this project is also limited, because in every group we have individual approach, and the participation is limited. So, which means that in each group we cannot involve more than 50 participants due to the security reasons, because we take them to the archaeological site due to the also efficiency of the deliverance of the information. Because every day our team of archaeologists, art curator, museologist, conservator, it's a really multidisciplinary team that is working individually by each child. So which means that even though with this project we can overcome the challenge of coming to the communities, but still it has limitations in terms of resources, human, financial, time, and so on, and the capacity that we can, because these projects are normally run during the expedition, and our archaeologist colleagues are dedicating really a huge amount of time and energy to run this extraordinary project. So alongside with their excavations also, and same about the museum staff, because we involve the restorer and art curators. So eventually, during these 5 years, I always had an idea that this project should be extended to more people, to reduce the limitations, and how can we make it more accessible to those with whom we cannot interact because of our limitations in terms of time, finances, human resources, and so on. And also the seasonality, because these projects are really seasonal. And in the search of the tools or ways of making it more accessible, I came to an idea of creating so-called how to say, movable or traveling boxes, which are kind of DIY boxes. But what is different about that? Now I'm going to rethink the access to the cultural heritage with this project, and make it accessible anytime, anywhere, to anyone, regardless of all those obstacles that earlier I have mentioned in the slide. So Curio Box can it's the kind of project of the Curio Maison, which is a France-based organization that I founded last year, and the idea was to find a way to share the cultural heritage topics with everyone, especially with those who for different reasons have lack of access to cultural heritage. So speaking about the lack of access could be also just simply, um, I don't know. It can be anything. We have already touched this area, so I'm not going to provide more time to that. So here we see that Curio box can simply, it's a box that carries an information from, let's say, tangible or intangible cultural heritage, or presented in a museum or not presented in a museum, but still it exists. And more often, these topics are endangered by being disappeared because of different reasons. Like, for example, we don't experience them anymore. And Curio Box can bring this to your home, to your school, to anywhere you are experiencing your daily life. So I'm showing you one example of the content of a Curio box. For example, this one is presenting an Armenian traditional doll, Nuri, that is, even in Armenia, is very rarely experienced. It has been very strong intangible cultural heritage element throughout the centuries. But unfortunately today, due to the change of the social structures and the priorities in our daily lives, it's getting disappeared. But still, this is a very accessible cultural heritage to anyone that even cannot, has no skills and knowledge of doll making, because we know that this is a rather complicated type of arts and crafts. So here you see in the first picture one of the components that are very finely developed. Each object is for some reason, and below you see a kind of step-by-step instruction how you can create, put together, simply stick everything together, and eventually you have Nuri. I didn't put it here, but the box contains also information about this cultural heritage in a very simple language that even a child can read and get engaged and interested, motivated to do this. And also it's available in Armenian, always in English, French, and in the language of the origin of the cultural heritage. The details are also very important, because most of us who think that we have no talent or no education of drawing, we cannot even draw little eye. But if you follow this simple guide, even if you have never experienced this, you can draw the face of the little doll. And the idea is that after the activity, you have so in the beginning you have a knowledge of cultural heritage, then you have an experience of a creative process where you develop your little motorics, your imagination, and just having a fun creative moment, which can be with your friend, in your family, at your school, and so on. And then you are having a nice object that always reminds you about this cultural heritage. So this is how we keep the memory. Okay, in these days, it's unavoidable to not speak about the multiculturalism, especially nowadays. I'm based in France, so with the multicultural societies, we find that it's very, very important to get to know the cultural, traditional specificities of our neighbors, our friends, and sometimes even our relatives. So learning about someone's cultural heritage doesn't mean that we ignore something of ours. It just simply enriches our knowledge and gives us more skillfulness in the interaction with our foreign close ones. So for the moment, I have developed 4 Kurio boxes. One about Armenian cultural heritage, one about my other culture, which is Indian, then Russian, and one cross note, which is rather universal. And this box is going to be developed more in involving, apart from Palestinian cross note, which was included in the UNESCO World Heritage list in 2021. It's going to provide all canvas of these unique crafts. And all boxes are suitable for children. And we also think about no rubbish. I mean, every box can be used. You will throw away nothing. So every detail is developed in a very detailed way. I'm a little bit proud of this project because since last year it has been really popular and people are really well interacting. So the idea is to develop the more thematics, to involve more cultural heritage, and once it becomes a part of our daily life, a part of our casual life, it means that we are closer to the cultural heritage. We care more. We feel more responsible, and we preserve much better. So, what does successful heritage education looks like? So, for example, for a museum, it can be the number of visitors. For me, it's when the participants are willing to come back. They continue the conversation and they are eager to learn and to share what they have learned. And they approach differences with curiosity. So, and in this case, the heritage becomes something people experience, share, and transmit, to share and transmit. So eventually coming to the topic of this presentation, how we go from passive audiences to the guardians of heritage. So eventually our objective in all this adventure, in all this route, is to develop people who will be the guardians of the heritage. The passive audiences are turned into active participants by targeted programs, the ones that I have already shared with you. In the process of creativity, they become cultural co-creators, and when they know more, when they practice by themselves, it becomes a part of, psychologically, it becomes a part of themselves. So automatically they become the guardians of heritage. So from observer to participant, then to co-creator, gives birth to a safeguard heritage. This formula is the base of whatever I did during all these years. And one recommendation I would give to those who are more interested in this topic and developing their career in this direction, it's really essential to always ask ourselves, when we work for the communities with a name. In this case, creating the cultural guardians or reducing the barriers between the people and cultural heritage. So one question is, who is currently excluded? The question is really essential. And then we pass to the second question, what barriers keeps them away? When we find the answers to these questions, we will find the ways, the tools, the materials to reduce the barriers between people and give them the best experiences. So one last thing I would like to share with you. And then I really hope that we will pass to the discussion, because I would like to make this session really interactive. Just a moment, I'm looking for my notes, just not to forget anything. Okay, so allow me to leave you with one practical reflection. Whenever I begin designing an educational program, I ask myself all these two questions, and then I find the solutions. So actually, as I conclude, I'd like to return to the title of today's presentation, from passive audiences to cultural co-creators. For me, becoming a cultural co-creator doesn't necessarily mean creating an exhibition or becoming a professional artist. So we should keep this always in our minds. It means something much more accessible. It means moving from observing culture to participating in it. So I'd like to conclude with one final thought. The future of cultural heritage will not depend only on governments or museums or archaeologists or even educators. It already started to depend on millions of ordinary individuals who choose to care. People who ask questions, people who participate, people who share stories, people who pass traditions to the next generation. My hope is that each of you leaves this conference not only with new knowledge, but with one simple question to carry into your own work. Who is still too far from cultural heritage, and what I can do to bring it one step closer? If each of us removes just one barrier for one person, together we will transform passive audiences into active participants into cultural co-creators, and cultural co-creators into guardians of our shared human heritage. I thank you very much for your attention, and I very much look forward to our discussion. Thank you. And if you would like to contact me, you can scan. This is the QR code to my LinkedIn profile. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for a very informative presentation, full of practical experience. I think it was more than necessary for our participants to see how it works in practical life. Dear participants, if you have questions, feel free to ask. I see the question of Ahmed. Maybe you would like to say it out loud? Easier.
Hello. Thank you very much. The tool, especially the last one that you presented, is of a personal significance to me because like I can see how it can be like from a monetary point of view very accessible and very easy to give at least on for a younger audience um, um, subconsciously like pass through this cultural aspect, and I congratulate you on that. Moving forward, I also like reflected much on this idea. I'm a heritage architect, and I very much think about how accessibility and how these barriers that we put on the GLAM in general, but also museums, how can they themselves putting pedestals and entry fees and so on, how they can be an obstacle. And I wanted to have your thought on that, like, do you consider in your when you're exhibiting or when you're designing spaces like certain areas where it is free to access? That is one. Two, can you also have areas in your in the GLAM institutions or like in museums where we can talk about spaces that can be open for public? Because like we're talking about accessibility and the public attendance and so on. So can that be possible in this sense? And maybe last thing would be you touched on safeguarding in the end in an active way. And in the webinars that we had lastly, we talked about conflicts and so on. So how can you see the engagement or like the participation of local communities when it comes to conflicts or when it comes to disasters, let's say, also that touches everybody, disasters of climate change, floods, and so on. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ahmed, for these questions. All are very important. So I hope I will not miss anything. If I do so, just remind me. I will come back to reflect on. So first of all, speaking about the exhibition areas and free areas, that was your question about. So more and more museums are trying to create spaces really dedicated for education and even for free time pass for children. Like at the National Gallery of Armenia in the recent years, they have created a special space where, first of all, these educational programs can be run, and also there are some tools and materials related to the collection of the museum that, for example, a family that visits the museum with children to attend a lecture, which is not really very interesting for a child, that they can pass there. So yes, I absolutely agree that museums are suffering a lot from the architectural setups because most of the museums are not designed to be museums. But luckily, those which are constructed from the scratch as museums, I'm really happy to observe that they have special spaces dedicated to reduce this obstacle for the educational activities, for the meaningful time pass at the museum for the visitors. I hope I answered to this question. And regarding to the safeguarding, so this is one of the most important questions that engage my activities. Whatever I did, the final aim is the preservation is to the preservation and transmission of the memory. So once because I mean, often like in our today's previous presentations, unfortunately, we are not able to preserve the physical existence of many cultural heritage monuments, but at least by communicating with children about these topics, which are really sometimes very hard topics, but we can find always a way, a method, a game, an interactive way to just keep it in their memories, or creating like curio boxes, tools that will always remind them about the existence of this cultural heritage. But you have raised the really topic of another conference to be discussed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. We had Christine here who had a question in the chat.
Yeah, if you want me to read it, I can read it. But basically, I was just asking which institutions have you collaborated with in Armenia other than the National Gallery, like maybe more local museums or the Folk Arts Museum or some of the other like organizations that work on cultural heritage. Like, yeah, I'd just be interested to know how the discussions have gone, if you've talked to them, like what level of openness they've had to this type of approach.
Yes, thank you very much. For many years, I've been in the leading team of the ICOM Armenia, that's the International Council of the Museums within UNESCO, and opening and promoting the museum education in Armenia was one of my basic activities. So basically, the seasonal activities, which I call the activities organized during the school vacations. So we have always partnered with some institutions. For example, in case of from the field to the museum, our local basic partners were the Institute of Archaeology and Ethnography. We have partnered with the Literature and Arts Museum, which is next to the National Gallery. I mean, almost, I don't know, Derenik Demircan Museum, from the small to the biggest museums, we had some sessions whenever the topics are related to the activities. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, just to understand, like specifically with the box concept, if some of them, I guess, are interested in implementing that, like their own music, like creating it and kind of taking that concept, doing it themselves.
Okay. If it's related, the question is related to the box. Box is a new invention. It's very new. It has been in my mind for many years. For the moment, the topics I have involved, that they are mostly not related to the collection. So I'm open to the museums to apply this methodology for their collections. But of course, from the ethical point of view, I cannot simply take an object of a museum and develop my curio box. It should be a high-level partnership. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I see another hand. You can ask.
Yes, please. Thank you for giving us some thoughts to go with home, but I just want you to shed some light. You mentioned the issue of social structure and how it has affected probably culture. I want to make references specifically to the issue that has to do with you mentioned the issue of from the field to the museum. And in your presentation, you concentrated educating mostly the young ones, bring them through, I guess, their school groups and children. Now, these cultural resources exist probably a little bit afar from the central museums where you take them to. I want to speak from a a typical village setup where maybe you are maybe 30 kilometers away from the central business. And in those villages is where the in situ or the actual cultural resources could be archaeology site and all those things that people relate to. How has been your experience of trying to get to those that live around cultural resources or archaeological sites to bring them to light, to understand and appreciate? It's not everybody who is closer to the sites are aware and may be a collaborator or helper. Some may not be. But how has been your experience in museum education departments? How have you managed, or have you managed to not only domesticate, bring those kids and people to the museum to learn, and also go take them to the sites, but also make those people around those sites be part of the education circuit, and also incorporating that into school curriculums? I just want to get some few reaction on that. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. So first of all, this collaboration was created exactly for that reason, to develop a knowledge around the local communities about the cultural heritage around them, because they are the first guardians of those cultural heritage. They are the first destroyers of that cultural heritage. So the idea was to involve the local children and to involve also some children from Yerevan, the capital city. So always this group is a mixed group of the local communities and communities from further around. With the recent years, the children who participated in the first year and second year, they became volunteers of the projects from the local community, from the village, to help us with the work of the newcomers. So this is an important question that you raise, and from the field to the museum project is aimed also to raise awareness with the local communities. One more thing I would add, within this project, we have a specific work conducted with the parents of the participants. So every program is starting with the meeting with the parents, where we explain them all the roadmap of the 4 days, where they get to know the stuff. And this is a fruit for the parents also to develop later on, because in 1 day, in 4 days, we cannot give them everything. It's just a hint that we give them. We give them the information, but it's within the families, within the community, that it should be preserved, the information, and developed and passed, so on. And the effect of the snowball is working, because we observe already 4 years how the local community around Vedi fortress is involved in the protection of this site.
Thank you. I just want to also add more when you mentioned, say, you involve the local, because there are two factors there that precipitate either destruction, preservation, or conservation of the cultural heritage, that those that are near are either the first to destroy or the first to get to conserve. And indeed, they are the primary players before any other person who we should look to have these cultural resources and relationship, and the heritage in particular, preserved, conserved, or used, because they are the first stop. Before anyone outside comes to destroy, they know it better. Thank you very much for adding those two angles to the
Thank you.
discussion.
Thank you for your
Appreciate it.
question, your remark.
I'm from Zambia.
Thank you. And maybe the last question, and we'll finish.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentations. My question already you mentions on others questions, but I also want to ask again my question that you already mentioned on slide before your presentation that some children came to visit a museum, but you're conscious that those children right now remember the statue names or not. My query is also the same, that right now you're already manage on program that student come to visit our archaeological site and like 4 days. So how do you think that this times you find any others result or something else? How do you find about that?
If I got your question right, I can share something really specific about this. Throughout these years, I had the pleasure to work within different seasons with the same children. And we observed that the children that pass through all these educational programs from very early ages, they have a different mentality. From the beginning, the cultural heritage becomes a part of their life. They have different concept about the life. They are more open-minded, more responsible. This is very important in this process, and they really involve themselves, whatever it can be, in the process of the preservation. Either it's a transmission of an information, either it's I don't know, just experimenting a traditional act, or all these kind of things. So I find that the experiment that I've started 20 years ago is giving its really high results, and it's really efficient, but it's some tool that needs to be developed with generations, because generations are changing. Today's children are not the same like 20 years ago. So this is a living process, constant process of work, of developing, adapting, observing the generations right here at this moment, and creating the best methodology to bring them closer to the cultural heritage. I don't know if I got your question right and if I have answered it correctly or not. If not, just let me know.
Yes, my question was the same, and I got my answer.
Thank you.
I also want to understand that those students understand or interested about the cultural heritage after their training or camps like this.
So if they are not interested, it means that the methodology is failed.
Yeah, I also want to understand. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I see one more hand. If Annie, you're fine with answering the last one?
Yes, I'm absolutely fine. Yeah, go ahead.
Adia, are you here? Yes. You can
Hello.
ask.
Yes.
Thank you for the insightful season. My name is Arya, and I'm joining from Afghanistan. I have a question, and my question is, in countries like Afghanistan, where protecting people's basic needs is often the priority. How can we convince society that preserving culture heritage is also essential for the country's future?
Thank you very much, Adia. This is a very complicated question you are raising now. Actually, I'm also coming from a country with a complex history. I am a generation that passed at least through 3 wars and an economic crisis, a severe one, where museums were totally, for example, closed. And that's an issue that is observed, but unfortunately, in the reality, I can tell you that often engaging with cultural heritage, with creative processes, helps people in complex situations like war, disasters, whatever, at least keep their mentality, their psychology healthier. If we manage to have some pioneers who